Now, please welcome Lala Morris, Assistant Director, Office of Business Opportunities, City of Houston.
Good morning, all. I'm happy to bring you greetings on behalf of the Director of the City of Houston's Office of Business Opportunity, Director Marcia Murray. I'm excited to be with you all this morning, along with Marlon Mitchell of HBDI, to talk to you about the city's Small Business Economic Relief Program. The Office of Business Opportunity is committed to cultivating a competitive and diverse economic environment in the City of Houston by promoting the success of small businesses and developing Houston's workforce. Our key objectives are to educate businesses, connect businesses, and grow small businesses. The grant program, an initiative of OBO, was created to provide financial assistance to small businesses that have been affected by COVID-19. The program creates a mechanism to alleviate economic distress of small businesses, promote economic development, and stabilize small businesses, jobs, and employment opportunities in the city of Houston. Marlon Mitchell will give you more details about the program, and I will be around after he presents to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And now, please welcome Marlon Mitchell, President and CEO of the Houston Business Development Corporation. Marlon, we can see your face, so we're ready for you.
Wonderful. Great. We got that technical difficulty worked out. So thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. Excited about the program that we're going to tell you about, the Small Business Economic Relief Program, and really ecstatic that the mayor of the city of Houston, Mayor Turner, the Office of OBO, Director Marcia Murray, had the foresight to help small businesses during these troubling and challenging times. Needless to say, we're still in the middle of a pandemic that is relentless. A number of businesses have been struggling, and the mayor determined that they wanted to establish a program that would actually help small businesses that have not traditionally had access to capital. So we're excited about the Small Business Economic Relief Program, and today's webinar is designed to tell you about the program, the eligibility requirements, how you can go about applying, and hopefully to get you some assistance. So with that, we'll go ahead and start the program. Get to the next slide. So the program is a $15 million fund through the CARES Act. Many of you will be familiar with the PPP and the EIDL program that was administered by the Small Business Administration. Unlike that program, the Small Business Economic Relief Program is designed to work for the smaller businesses. With the PPP program, a lot of larger businesses, publicly traded companies that had established banking relationships and were able to readily access certain documentation, they were able to get in line and get that funding pretty quickly. Grants were made in the amounts of $10 million to businesses that may have had sales of $100 million. But this program is designed to work with businesses that are much smaller. The grant size will be a $50,000 grant, up to $50,000. And it is for small businesses, for-profit businesses. Chambers of commerces are eligible to participate as well, given the impact that they have on small businesses. And again, we're looking to provide grants to those businesses that can show the likelihood that they can sustain themselves throughout the pandemic. There will be a technical assistance component that's married with this program. It's one thing to provide access to capital, but oftentimes we find that small businesses may lack some business acumen. So there will be a technical assistance component tied to the program as well. Next slide, please. So the program is actually administered by the Office of Business Opportunity. You heard from Lala earlier about the department and the services that they provide. HBDI, Houston Business Development, Inc., has been a subrecipient or an instrumentality of the city for many, many years. For 34 years, we've operated as a community development financial institution, providing assistance to small businesses, giving access to capital and management and technical assistance. Since our inception in 1986, we've deployed nearly $100 million in capital, largely targeted to communities that are underserved, those that have not been able to participate in the mainstream of economic prosperity. We've administered a number of programs on behalf of the city of Houston. There's Section 108 Guarantee Program, there's Small Business Stabilization Fund, as well as several CDBG funds. So we're pleased and actually proud to be able to administer this fund on behalf of the city as well. Our role in this process will be to do what we're doing today, getting the word out, marketing and outreach. We've developed an online portal through which the applications will be submitted. We'll process those applications and disperse the funding, as well as provide the management and technical assistance for the program. Next slide, please. So eligibility, in order to be eligible to participate in the program, it is designed to assist for-profit businesses, businesses that have been established for at least 1 year prior to the pandemic. And the business has to have its principal place of business located within the city limits of the city of Houston. You'll be required to provide evidence of your revenue. So we want to make sure that your business has been significantly impaired or impacted economically because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're looking at, again, businesses that are smaller. Unlike the PPP, the EIDL, and the Main Street program, where businesses might have sales as much as $25 million or $50 million, this program is designed for those businesses that have sales equal to or less than $2 million in annual gross revenue. And that's prior to COVID-19. The businesses have to be in good standing, of course, with all city requirements. They have to be current on any property tax or personal equipment tax. Any relationship that you have with the city, you want to make sure that you're in good standing. If you have a contract, that contract cannot be one that's been breached. So again, being in good standing with the city is a requirement. The technical assistance component, which we'll talk a little bit more here later, is a requirement. You will have to go through a technical assistance component of this program in order to receive all of your funding. Local chambers of commerce are eligible to participate, while nonprofits generally are not eligible. We have included local chambers of commerce operating within the city of Houston to participate in the program as well. Next slide. So businesses that aren't eligible to participate in the program would include those that are engaged in illegal activities or speculative real estate speculation, multi-level pyramid sales, gambling, investment or lending activities. Again, nonprofit corporations are not included unless they are a chamber of commerce. A business that doesn't have the proper permit or license to operate in accordance with state or local statutes or ordinances would be ineligible. Businesses that have been notified by the city that they have a breach of contract, or their contract was terminated, or they had a contract with the city that has been terminated within the past 2 years. Businesses that have been found guilty by a court or pled guilty or paid a fine for violating the COVID-19 related order would be ineligible to participate. And then businesses that have been ordered closed by a governmental official due to a violation of COVID-19 would be ineligible. Private clubs and businesses that require a person to be a member pay a membership fee, those are excluded from this program. And then businesses where persons under 18 are prohibited from entering during all hours of businesses would be excluded. And then lastly, businesses that owe funds to the city by way of damage claims or settlement agreement are ineligible. So in essence, you really want to make sure that you're in good standing with all of your state, local, and federal obligations to be eligible to participate in the program. Next slide, please. So the grants, it should be emphasized that the grant program is not on a first come, first served basis, as many of the other federal initiatives have been. This program is designed to select applications randomly. There is a prioritization of the applications, and that's going to be based upon geography, employee makeup, the length of time that your business has been around, and your need for access to capital. Geography, we're looking at targeting those underserved communities that again have been historically left out of the mainstream of economic prosperity. So we target those low-income census tracts, communities that have over 51% low-income residents. The mayor's complete communities, I believe there are 10 neighborhoods that have been targeted that would be eligible to participate in the program. Those will actually be given priority in terms of how we actually process the applications. Businesses that employ low to moderate income citizens will be given priority as well. If you have 50% or more of your employees are considered low to moderate income, then your application will be given priority. And then we're looking for obviously, we want to see the economy thrive. And so if we have people that are gainfully employed, we can contribute to the wherewithal of the economy. So if you retain 10 or more businesses, meaning you have folks that you're employing now and you're not going to lay them off, if you retain 10 or more employees, then your application will be given priority. Those businesses that have been established for 5 years or more also will be given priority. Next slide. And then resiliency. If you have a proposal for recovery or you have a resiliency plan that can show that you have the likelihood of sustaining yourself through this pandemic, then you will be given priority as well. And then we want to make sure that the funds are going to those who most need it. So if you have applied for a PPP loan or an EIDL loan or received any federal assistance or otherwise during this pandemic, you're not excluded from receiving funds under this program. However, preference will be given to those businesses that have not received any assistance. And we're looking at those businesses that maybe you did receive PPP funds and EIDL funds, but it just wasn't enough to sustain you. I don't think any of us thought that we would be where we are today, that we're still trying to get through this thing. This is unprecedented. Obviously, this pandemic is something that we haven't experienced in our lifetime, and there doesn't appear to be an end in sight. So those businesses that may have received PPP assistance find themselves right back at square one, needing additional relief. So you are eligible to apply. But the way the program is designed, each of these factors, geography, resiliency, access to capital, all of these will be weighted and then a score given, and that's how we will determine which loans are actually given first. We're looking for those businesses that have had a high loss of revenue. We'll prioritize those to make sure, again, that with this program, the small businesses, those that really need help and have not been able to access it, those businesses that are in low to moderate income communities, those will be given preference with respect to how we process the applications. Again, it's not on a first come, first served basis. It is a process that will be over a period of days. We will close the actual application portal in probably about another 10 days. So you have plenty of time to actually submit. Next slide, please. In order to submit your application, you'll be required to upload several documents into the application portal. A business tax return for the fiscal year in 2019 or the calendar year 2019, and a profit and loss statement or a profit and loss statement. If you don't have your 2019 tax return, you can submit a profit and loss statement for the period of 2019. We also ask that you submit a profit and loss statement for the interim period ended June 30th of 2020 or for the second quarter. If you don't have a profit and loss statement, then you can provide bank statements for the months of April, May, and June of 2020. We ask that you have a recovery plan or a resiliency plan. If you don't have it, not to worry. It is a question that we'll ask if you have one, but it's not required that you have it in order to be considered for the loan. Again, resiliency and management and technical assistance will be provided along with the program if you're selected. And then we reserve the right to ask for additional documentation. The city, OBO, the mayor's office, wanted to make this program as user-friendly as possible. And so there may be occasions where certain documentation may not be available, but if we can provide something that substitutes, again, as in the case of profit and loss statement for the interim period of June 2020, we will also allow you to provide the bank statement. So there may be other documents that we'll request as needed on a case-by-case basis. Next slide, please. So the funds can be used for just about any of your operating expenses that you would normally have. Pay your utilities, inventory, accounts payable, rent, mortgage, PPE equipment, equipment related to COVID-19. And then also for marketing and retooling or just making the adjustments to be able to sustain yourselves during this pandemic. I know a lot of restaurants have started to open up outdoor seating arrangements that may have the screening to make people safe and comfortable and socially distanced. So whatever you may need to acquire relative to COVID-related expenditures would be an eligible expenditure under the program. We will ask you to provide documentation evidencing how the funds are to be used. Next slide, please. So the funds will be dispersed through a two-phased approach. Then what you will do when you log on to the application portal, you'll be able to register and create a user ID and password, which will enable you to go in and start answering all of the questions and uploading the required documents. If in fact you decide you need to go and gather some documentation and come back, you can always exit the portal, save your work and exit the portal, and then log back in and continue where you left off. And once you've completed the application process, you'll receive an email notification indicating that your application has been submitted. When you are selected, you'll also receive an email notification indicating that your grant has been approved. Upon approval, we'll ask you to provide us with additional information. You'll log back into your portal. You'll have access to the grant award letter, which you'll sign. Once you've signed that, you'll also have access to an ACH form, automated clearinghouse form, that you fill out your bank name, routing number, account number, your business name, that pertinent information, and you upload a voided check. When you do that, then that information will come back to us. We will process it through the lending institution, and you'll receive 50% of the grant amount that's being awarded. 50%. You will receive the second 50% installment upon your completion of the required training. So the idea is to help businesses to grow and to expand and to sustain themselves through these difficult and challenging times. Many of you know that a lot of folks go into business and they are good cooks, or they have a great recipe, so they start a restaurant, but maybe they don't have the backroom support that they need. Maybe they're not well versed in human resources or in financial projections or cash flow analysis. Well, the idea with this program is to help you to make sure that you can sustain yourself throughout this pandemic and any other type of natural disaster. We just missed Hurricane Laura, but what if it had hit and it wreaked havoc on our economy and our local community? We want to make sure that businesses are able to sustain themselves and operate successfully during those times. So resiliency training will be there to help you focus on finance and marketing, strategic planning and human resources, and just an overall perspective of operating your business successfully, whether there's a pandemic or not. So once you completed that training, which will be webinar based, you'll be able to log into a portal. You can either go to a live webinar or you'll be able to participate at your own pace. You'll be required to complete those webinars. Once you do that, then we will provide the second installment. So the funds will be dispersed in 2 phases. Also, I should mention that the way that we'll determine the grant amount is based upon your operating costs. So we'll look at your monthly operating costs and allow 3 times your monthly operating costs to determine what the actual grant amount will be. Next slide, please. So the program was announced by the mayor and city council on July 29th. On August 19th, we actually launched the program. The application portal was open and remains open until September the 4th at 11:59 p.m. So you have plenty of time to still submit your applications. Again, it's all electronic, all the applications, particularly in the midst of this pandemic, in order to make sure that people are safe and healthy. We have city decided to make this an online application portal. Very user-friendly. If in fact you log on and you do have challenges, you can always go to the website and get frequently asked questions, or you can actually send an email or make a phone call if you have any trouble at all with the program. Once we've actually closed the portal, we'll take about 2 months to disperse the funds. It could extend beyond that, but it's our goal to have all of the funds dispersed by October 30th, 2020. Next slide, please. So you'll see on the page there, you can actually go to cityofhouston-sberp.org in order to open up an application. You'll also be able to see frequently asked questions there that can help walk you through the application process. If as you go through the program you have questions, you can always send an email to info@cityofhouston-sberp.org. And you can also call 713-845-2462. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions that you all have.
Okay. So our first question is, how will smaller businesses that are in a reopening stage be considered for this program, like educational services such as daycare or tutoring services?
Any type of business is generally eligible to participate in the program. It can be retail, service-oriented, professional service providers, manufacturing concerns. So the type or the industry really has no bearing, with the exception of those that have already been identified as ineligible business types. The business has to be a business that is currently open and operating, and one that has been open at least for 1 year prior to the pandemic, prior to March 1st, 2020. So if you fall into that category, regardless of what industry type you have, you would be eligible to participate in the program.
Did you state nonprofits were not qualified?
Nonprofits are ineligible to participate with the exception of chambers of commerce. Chambers of commerce usually have small businesses as their membership, and they're engaged in supporting the effort of the ecosystem of small business community. So they are included, but other nonprofits are excluded.
Is the Small Business Economic Relief Program different from the PPP program?
Entirely different.
Okay.
The PPP program is similar in that it's funded through the CARES Act. That's the only similarity. Other than that, this is a city-driven program. The mayor and city council could have chosen to put that $15 million elsewhere, but realizing the need of the small business community during this pandemic, they decided to establish a program that is really geared towards helping the small mom and pop micro enterprises, businesses that have sales of less than 2 million. The PPP program, on the other hand, helped publicly traded businesses, businesses that may have had sales up to $200 million. And arguably that could have been at the expense of some of the smaller businesses that were not able to get in line because they didn't have banking relationships, or they didn't have the documentation available. So this program intentionally has low document requirements. It's intended to help put money out to businesses to help them stay afloat during this time.
I have submitted my application and subsequently received my 2019 tax return, which I would like to submit. Is this possible?
I believe you can. If you've already submitted your application, there may be a way that we can accommodate an upload. So what you can do is submit that question to info@cityofhouston-sberp.org and provide us with your application ID. If you did not submit the information, then you likely will receive an email saying that your application is incomplete. And at that time, you would have a period of time to submit that information. So, and if you did not submit the 2019, the option was to provide a profit and loss statement for the same period. If you did not include either of those documents, then your application would be deemed incomplete, and you will be given some time to actually go back into the portal and submit the proper documentation.
The profit and loss statements for April through June 2020 require fast paperwork processing, which may be an obstacle due to the tight deadline. Is the September 4th deadline final?
The September 4th deadline is final. It's our hope that, again, given that you have nearly from the date that the application portal opened, a little over 2 weeks, that that would give sufficient time to gather the necessary documentation. We're not asking you to go out and have a CPA provide a review or an audit. Obviously, that would be prohibitive. But many businesses operate with QuickBooks or some other accounting system. It doesn't have to be prepared by a third party, as long as you can provide us with the information. That profit and loss, generally businesses are keeping their accounting records. If you pull that information from your accounting records, then you can provide that. Again, if you don't have that, then we would ask that you provide bank statements. Just provide us with 3 months of bank statements for April, May, and June.
I have a marketing consulting firm and I operate from home. Really, our operation costs are minimum, yet because of the cancellation of projects, our income has been significantly impacted. Do you think we have an opportunity for this program?
Yes, if you are a home-based business and that business is located within the city of Houston, your business address is within the city of Houston, and you can provide all of the required documentation, then you're eligible. Now, the amount of your grant will be determined by your operating expenses. So if you don't have much in the way of operating expenses, it doesn't mean that you're ineligible. It would just mean that you would probably have a smaller grant award, but you certainly are eligible. I do want to advise that, or sort of state as a caveat that $15 million is not a lot when you compare it to the vast need that exists. You have thousands of businesses that have been impaired as a result of this pandemic. So I say that only to suggest that everybody won't be able to receive assistance. At some point, the funds will be exhausted, and that obviously will be prior to everyone receiving some assistance or an award. I still remain hopeful and prayerful, though, that there will be another stimulus package and additional funds made available to help our small businesses, as they are the engine of our economy. It's my hope and prayer again that Congress will make additional funds available and that the mayor and city council will provide yet another round of funding. Because $15 million is just, unfortunately, it's great, and we're excited about it because it's going to help a lot of people, but regrettably, it just won't be able to help.
Do regularly engaged independent contractors count as employees?
No, they don't.
Can this program help the newer companies that have not been able to conduct or get business rolling because of the current situation? These are businesses in existence for less than 2 years.
If it's less than 2 years, but more than 1 year, yes. But if you have been in business less than a year, then you're not eligible to participate in the program.
So I'm not understanding this question. How much is allocated per business and how many businesses could be selected?
Well, it's difficult to say because we don't know what the operating expenses are of each business. But if we assume that we could make grants of $50,000 and we use the full amount, then you would have approximately 270 grants. If you double that and say that the grants are 25,000, then you would maybe 540 grants. But that's not a fair assessment because I already know that we'll have people who will receive grants in the amount of maybe $5,000 based upon their operating expenses.
Is the Small Business Economic Relief Program just for Houston?
Yes, sir. It's only for the city of Houston, the incorporated for the city limits, businesses that are operating or actually have a principal residence inside of the city of Houston, city limits.
You mentioned that loans will be selected based upon various communities that are in need the most. Can you share which communities those are?
Yes, so your underserved communities that have typically 51% low-income residents residing within those communities. So that's going to be largely your inner city neighborhoods, your Fifth Ward, Third Ward, Denver Harbor, Sunnyside, and there are several of them, as well as the mayor's complete communities, which is comprised of several neighborhoods, some of which I've just mentioned. So again, it's not limited to those communities. It's just prioritizing those communities. Again, we'll look at the location of the business. We'll look at how long a business has been established, how many employees they'll retain. We'll look at whether or not they have resiliency plans. We'll weight each of those metrics and then provide a score, and then that will determine which applications will be processed with priority.
And you can visit the city's Complete Communities website if you have questions about whether or not your business's principal place of business is located in a complete community.
When applying, is there a form that we will need to be filled out to show how the business has been affected by COVID financially, or is it up to the business to put together a document that shows the loss?
We will ask that question of you if your business has been impacted by COVID-19. And then the information that you're providing, the 2019 profit and loss statement, the 2019 tax return, along with the interim second quarter 2020 profit and loss, will provide us with the information for us to do an analysis and determine what type of impact that you sustained.
Could you please reiterate what documents are required for submission?
Sure. You'll need to provide a 2019 tax return. You'll also need to provide a 2019 profit and loss statement if you don't have the tax return. Secondly, we'll ask you to provide a interim 2020 profit and loss statement for the period ended June 30th. If you don't have that available, then you can provide bank statements for the months of April, May, and June. And then we're looking for you to provide us with some sort of a statement about resiliency or a proposal relative to recovery during this pandemic. And then again, we'll look at each application that comes in. If there are documents that are not provided, we'll look at those and determine whether or not there's something that they can provide in lieu of that will provide us with the documentation we need. Let me suggest this too, that much of the information that we're requiring is so that we can show the federal government at the conclusion of this program that the funds were used in a manner that's consistent with the CARES Act. So we have to make sure that we're documenting eligible expenses, documenting that the business was actually impaired. So that's the reason that we ask you to provide these documents. And it's minimal. It's certainly not a loan. I think earlier someone asked the question, what do we need to do to apply for the loan? It's not a loan, it's a grant. And so the grant doesn't have to be repaid. There's no underwriting. We're not looking at your cash flow or the liquidity. We will do some verification of documents. We will do background checks to make sure that there are no bankruptcies or state, local, or federal liens. But other than that, this is not a loan program. It's a grant program.
We have filed for 2019 tax extension. What do we do?
Provide a profit and loss statement for the period ended 2019. And you can upload that extension as well.
If you receive the EID, are you eligible for this program?
Yes. You're eligible if you received any other form of assistance. If you received PPP funding or Main Street program funding or conventional loan, if you've received any funding assistance at all, you're still eligible to apply under this program. The thought is that just because you've received assistance doesn't mean that that assistance was enough. A number of people applied for the EIDL or the PPP thinking that they may, let's say, as an example, they applied for $100,000, they ended up getting $10,000. So they still have a need. And as this pandemic continues to stretch out month after month, that need doesn't go away. So yes, you're still eligible to apply. You just won't be given priority. Those businesses that have not received any assistance are the businesses that will receive priority.
We've received a question, and both Gabriella and Jessica have answered it, but basically they want to know if this is being recorded. Yes, and please allow us 24 hours to send the PowerPoint and the link to the recording. What is the email address for questions?
info@cityofhouston-sbdrp.org.
Please verify that this is a grant and not a loan that needs to be paid back.
This is a grant and not a loan that needs to be paid back. Yes, it is a grant program.
Are zip codes 77477 and 77459 included?
I don't know that offhand, but if you put that in the in an email, we can certainly verify that. Lala, I don't know if you know that offhand.
I don't know offhand, but we can definitely verify that offline.
Yeah, so just send that question to us in an email and we can get back to you.
Can you cover again how the amount of the grant is determined?
Yeah, the amount of the grant will be based simply upon your operating expenses. So your monthly operating expenses, we'll look at the average monthly operating expenses and we'll multiply that times 3, and that will determine how much you're eligible to receive.
Are freelance workers and sole proprietors eligible for assistance, and how will this affect prioritization?
I'm sorry, Mark, I didn't hear the first part of the question.
Are freelance workers and sole proprietors eligible for assistance, and how will this affect prioritization?
The type of business, whether you're a sole proprietorship, a limited liability company, a partnership, a corporation, an S corporation, doesn't affect the prioritization. And yes, the sole proprietorship is eligible to participate.
Does this apply to smaller subcontractor businesses who have combined staff ratio of both contractors, part-time, and full-time employees?
Yes, you can be a contractor, and when we look at how many employees you have, determine prioritization. So we're looking at prioritization based upon job retention. We won't count contract employees, but we will count full-time positions as well as part-time equivalents or FTEs.
What's the difference between profit loss statement and interim profit loss statement?
So I'm sorry, I probably should, that's a great question. The interim is just saying it's not for a full year. So the profit and loss statement for 2019 is for the full year, the fiscal year. The interim is basically saying it's for a shorter period of time. So from January to June is typically what an accountant would prepare an interim statement for that second quarter. So it would actually cover 6 months. If you have monthly financial statements that you can provide, that would be acceptable. If you have QuickBooks or Sage or some accounting system in your that you use to keep your records, then you could just print out that for the period ended June 30th of 2020, and that would be sufficient.
Can we resubmit missing documents?
If you have submitted your application and it's been submitted, then the answer would be no. If you have not yet submitted, then you have up until the time the application portal closes the opportunity to go back in and continue to upload documents. But once you've submitted your application, then you won't be able to go back in. Now, let's say you submitted your application and you uploaded documents, but they're not the required documents. As we process the applications, we'll be able to determine or verify if we received what was requested. If it wasn't received, then we'll give you an opportunity to actually submit the appropriate documentation. So you would still have some time because that application would be deemed incomplete. If the application is incomplete, you'll be given additional time to submit an application or to submit the proper documentation.
My business is located in South Houston. Can I apply for the assistance?
If South Houston is considered in the city of Houston limits and you receive services from the city of Houston and your our council members from the city of Houston represents you, then yes.
So the person that asked that question actually clarified in the chat that they meant the city of South Houston, and so that would not be included in the city of Houston's city limits.
When you review the tax returns for 2019, does the business have to have had a loss in the adjusted gross revenue line of the tax return?
No, it does not.
There is a line on the application that is asking for an asset dollar amount. What is that used for, and how can I provide the requested information? Meaning I'm not sure what to put in that field.
So the total assets would basically come from your balance sheet. In your financial statements, there are two components: a balance sheet that shows what you have in the way of assets. It could be equipment, it could be land, property, it could be inventory. So we're just trying to get an idea of the size of your business when we ask for total assets. It doesn't have to be something that is documented. If you know what you own in your business, then you probably can give us a record of your assets. So the balance sheet again would show all of your assets, what you own, and then it would show your corresponding liabilities, and then your net worth. The other document that's often used as a part of the financial statement is the profit and loss statement. Obviously, that shows what you generated in income, what you have in operating expenses, and then what your net profit is. So there is a line that asks for total assets. That's something it's not required that you provide any documentation for that. If you have the documentation available, typically when we look at tax returns, we can glean that information.
Do you have to have a minimum number of employees for the application?
No, you don't. That's for this application, it's based upon your sales size. If you have $2 million in sales or less, then you're eligible to apply, regardless of your number of employees.
And with that, Gabriela, I think we're done.
Wow, this was, I mean, Marlon, my hats to you, to the city of Houston, to Argentina James, and everyone promoting and trying to get business owners to know about this. For all of you, I want to reiterate again, this presentation will be available to the participants. Please give us 24 hours. We need the system to give us exactly who came to the session. Also, this presentation is recorded and is going to be made available to the participant as well, or you can go to our YouTube channel at houstonMBDA and you're going to find the presentation there, but we're going to share everything. And when we send the email, we'll definitely share the email from info@cityofhouston-sbrp.org. So if you have more questions, please free to send them. They are working. I mean, I know I've gotten a few of the questions and I've forwarded to them and they've answered within 24 hours. So just be patient in the sense that they won't answer to you immediately, but they will do it within 24 hours. I don't know if Lala, Marlon, you guys have any extra comments or remarks, or Argentina?
I would just encourage everyone to please go to the portal. We still have until September the 4th, so got plenty of time. And if you have any questions as you go through the application, feel free to reach out to us. Visit the website at www.cityofhouston-sberp.org. A lot of useful information there. These are very challenging times, and so again, I applaud the city and the Office of Business Opportunity for putting this program together, and we're pleased to be a part of it.
I would just say the City of Houston is really happy to partner with HBDI to support the business owners in the City of Houston as they work on recovery from the economic challenges that have been faced as a result of the pandemic. And Gabriela, I'd just like to thank you again for hosting this forum for us. It seems to have been very, very helpful for the attendees.
Yes, and once again, thank you, everyone. We have more than 105 participants, a lot of phone calls. So if you need anything, email us, and thank you so much. Enjoy your day. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.